Anxiety truly messes with you. It holds you back and poisons your life. Constant anxiety hinders your ability to work effectively, grow personally, socialize, enjoy life, make money, and simply feel good about yourself. She poisons and destroys relationships, prevents self-expression, defends personal boundaries, hinders making new acquaintances, achieving goals. A strong feeling of alarm causes us to steer clear of public speaking, crowded areas, open or enclosed spaces, public transportation, airplanes, germs, and other similar situations. Due to anxiety, it's tough for us to ask for something for ourselves, let alone talk to others. We take conflicts, rejections, and manipulations much harder than most people. Constant anxiety drains us of strength, energy, motivation, and leads to apathy, dependency, depression, insomnia, procrastination, and various psychosomatic illnesses, which further diminishes the quality of life. And yet anxiety is our evolutionary survival mechanism. Thanks to the alarm, all our ancestors survived and gave offspring. Less alarming ones eaten by saber-toothed tigers, perished in conflicts, expelled, died of hunger, cold, infections, poisonings, diseases, unable to produce offspring due to various reasons. Alarm is a signal from our psyche that something may pose a risk to our life and well-being. She motivates us to proactively identify dangers and threats and to take necessary measures to evade them, even in the absence of actual dangers or threats. And here it's important to differentiate between anxiety and fear. Fear is a response to a real specific threat and danger. Fear signifies that at this moment there is a particular thing endangering my life and well-being. For example, at this moment an enraged dog is sprinting in my direction. At this very moment a large truck came hurtling towards me. At this moment there is an individual wielding a knife approaching me in a dimly lit alley. Therefore the danger is tangible, genuine, and apparent. And worry is like a reaction to the thought that something might threaten me in the future. Something unclear, at some point in the future, in some way menacing, however that is not certain. Honestly, at this moment there is nothing that poses a threat to me. Fear instantly compels us to take tangible measures with the objective of eliminating or avoiding potential danger. We do it right away, we don't think about it. And the worry makes us think that something might be threatening us. Search for potential and unfeasible risks and threats even in situations where they cannot exist in principle. To create mental images of catastrophic scenarios in your mind in order to subsequently prevent the likelihood of their occurrence or manifestation. To avoid wasting the charge we receive, which stays with us as muscle tension, we make sure not to let it go to waste. For instance, there might be a tiger concealed in that grass over there. I should not go there. Or, I haven't seen those individuals previously, so I should probably keep my distance from them. Perhaps they are narcissists and psychopaths. I should refrain from touching this handle. Maybe an unwell individual touched it before me. And what if it laughs if I come near to introduce myself? Did I close the door when I departed from the house? Did I turn off the iron? And so on. These are our automatic thoughts and catastrophic expectations that trigger our anxiety. Seeing danger and risks where there are none, that's just a harmless mistake. However, not perceiving danger where it can be, such a mistake can have fatal consequences and cost lives. Thus, our brain frightens us in order to prevent us from experimenting and taking risks. It is of utmost importance to understand that our psyche does not have the task of making us happy and satisfied. We have the ability to make ourselves happy by learning how to manage our emotions and effectively satisfy our needs. The function of the mind is to help us effectively solve problems in order to ensure survival and reproduction. If you have got to be on edge and stressed out all the time for that, then so be it, you cannot avoid it. So all our worries are initially adaptive, meaning they are aimed at help, protection, and survival. Behind every worry of ours stands our survival mechanism. Times have changed and threats have greatly evolved, but the mechanisms and reactions remain the same. What once helped us survive now hinders us from living. Now, instead of being afraid of dying from predators, fellow tribesmen, hunger, cold, poisonings, diseases, or being expelled from the pack, we worry about what others will think of us. Now we are afraid to come off as out of place, ridiculous, wrong, not attractive enough, not smart enough, not rich enough. We're stressing about an argument with a colleague, worried about the exam, concerned about our health, loved ones, children, strangers, the health of strangers' children, the price of oil, a celebrity divorce, the semi-finals of the Premier League, a bad game, a negative comment, getting a low grade, the lack of likes. We're imagining ourselves a terrible future. What if they fire me? What if they cancel money? What if I become unwell? What if he terminates our relationship? What if he is not a producer? What if? And we all experience this as though it is a question of life and death. There are significantly fewer actual threats, but the level of anxiety is extremely high. So our internal survival mechanism continues to look for threats and dangers even where there are none, blowing them up to catastrophic levels in our imagination. And it urges us, makes us try to control and avoid these risks. So we're experiencing a threat and stress as if our survival depends on it. So we get the first reason for excessive anxiety. This is an overreacting response to threats and risks. Let us keep going. Our alarm tells us that something is not right in our life, that we are not coping with something. We lack something or our needs are not met. For example, when we don't feel safe, when we're lonely, when we lack attention and support, we experience a sense of deprivation and longing for fulfillment. Or when we cannot make it, when we cannot protect our personal boundaries, cannot fulfill ourselves or express ourselves in any way. For example, if there have been some major changes in your life, like a divorce, moving, changing jobs, losing a loved one, a traumatic experience, maybe even a wedding and the birth of a child, and you haven't fully adapted to it yet. In any case, you are going to receive signals from your mind in the form of anxiety. So you have to pay attention to it, determine the reasons behind it, and take care of yourself in some way. If we don't pay attention to this signal, if we downplay or ignore our emotions, feelings, experiences, then our mind starts speaking to us louder, and our anxiety intensifies until we hear it. That's why it's so important to know what anxiety is, how it works, and how to live with it properly. Comprehend what she is talking about, give importance to your own requirements, and simply look after yourself. And it's also important to teach our psyche to handle anxiety adequately to the circumstances, so that it can effectively and properly perform its functions. So that she can be our protector and motivator, not a source of problems, pain, suffering, and limitations. If we do not live through our anxiety, but attempt to suppress it, fight against it, try to numb it with pills, cigarettes, flirting, sweets, or drown it in alcohol, then over time it only becomes stronger. It develops into a chronic, toxic, unlivable state that is impossible to endure. On top of everything else, we can develop dependency and eating disorders. Toxic anxiety, like any toxic emotion, becomes the main and strongest emotion and poisons the psyche. Chronic anxiety results in chronic muscle tension and alterations in the functioning of internal organs. So over time, anxiety gets buried in the body as muscle tension and blocks, leads to changes in metabolism, chronic diseases, and psychosomatics, which in turn further increases the level of anxiety. For our brain, such muscle tension corresponding to anxiety, such an anxious muscle pattern literally indicates that there is danger in close proximity, which in turn further enhances the level of anxiety. Go ahead. Our alarm once again prompts us to search for threats even where they cannot exist, to blow them up to catastrophic levels, to try to control and avoid them. And our consciousness is looking for a convenient explanation for this tension and anxiety. What is it that we can worry about so that our inner tension is justified and our concerns are valid? And we are happy to be helped in this by the media, political technologists, social networks, marketers, loving parents, and other producers of alarming content. So we initiate a state of panic regarding everything under the sun. Crises, catastrophes, cataclysms, wars, viruses, violence, cruelty, injustice, intrigues, scandals, investigations, global conspiracies, and other reptilians that may be lurking in the shadows. All these anxious thoughts are now spinning endlessly in our heads, like in a movie theater. They take up all the funds of our attention and thinking and accordingly set all our perception filters on an anxious wave. Regardless of any thought, even the most unbelievable, our consciousness will not make a choice. We will always discover verification of this in the news, in gossip, in our own interpretations. People occasionally perish, banks occasionally go bankrupt, dogs have the tendency to bite, planes have the potential to crash, elevators have the possibility to fall, doctors occasionally make mistakes, loved ones have the capability to betray. These individuals gave me a really bad look, like some really dangerous and suspicious people that I should be wary of. This one speaks in a strange manner, possibly attempting to deceive me, and this one blinks with such loudness, undoubtedly displaying abusive and psychopathic tendencies. I was aware that they are all alike. So we end up forming these totally messed up, worrisome beliefs and thoughts that are associated with all this inner tension and stress. And this in turn is another reason for stress and anxiety, which adds to the overall burden. In addition to all other concerns, we can commence panicking about the physical symptoms of our anxiety, such as an accelerated heartbeat, difficulty breathing, perspiration, elevated blood pressure, headaches, and so on. Anxieties regarding health start gradually creeping into my mind, which in turn only exacerbates these symptoms and manifestations even further. So you can become anxious about anxiety or develop a fear of anxiety or experience a fear about anxiety, which only serves to intensify the manifestation of anxiety symptoms and so on. This snowball effect can even lead to a panic attack. Therefore, let us summarize it. Fear is a reaction to a specific threat and a real danger. Fear is pushing us to take action right now. And worry is merely a response to the idea that something could potentially pose a threat to us. This is not a specific, tangible, or differentiated fear that we possess in our hypothetical future that exists only in our imagination. Alarm is our survival mechanism that drives us to seek dangers and threats even where there are none, to exaggerate them to a catastrophic level, to try to control and avoid them. In the present-day world, this survival mechanism leads to our anxieties being disproportionate to the potential threats and dangers that exist. This type of anxiety is not acknowledged or undergone, which results in even more elevated levels of anxiety. Next, anxiety is a signal from our mind that something might be threatening us. That we are not safe, that we are lacking something, that some of our needs are not being satisfied or adequately addressed. That's how we obtain the energy and voltage required to attend to our own needs and take care of ourselves. If we do not realize our needs and do not spend this energy, then we stay tense, and it only increases anxiety even more and exacerbates our state of unease. Over time, chronic anxiety and tension result in chronic muscle tension in the muscles that correspond to the experience of anxiety. So we are in the process of developing the appropriate muscle pattern for alarm. This involves muscle tension, which creates an anxious bodily pattern in our head and brain, leading to foci of excitement that correspond to the experience of anxiety. What else increases the tension even more? So in order to justify the muscle and emotional tension, our mind picks and chooses convenient anxious thoughts for itself. And our attention discovers a plethora of evidence for these thoughts, which ultimately leads to the formation of insufficient anxious beliefs, which in turn also triggers a fresh wave of anxiety, stress, and tension. If we start freaking out and getting all worked up about the physiological manifestations of anxiety, then we end up with fear about anxiety or anxiety about anxiety, all the way up to panic attacks. Following that, our behavior becomes saturated with a variety of empty rituals and restrictions that are linked to feelings of anxiety. This is what we refer to as protective and evasive behavior, and thus the circle is fully formed. Experiencing intense anxiety, muscle tension, overwhelming anxious thoughts and beliefs, physiological reactions and symptoms, engaging in avoiding and protective behavior, all of these patterns become deeply ingrained in our psyche, in our brain as habitual responses, forming an anxious habit or a habit of worrying that persists over time and affects our daily lives. All of this grows in our brain with corresponding neural networks. We have a real doozy of a problem here, and it's going to take a lot of thinking to solve it. Just working on a part of the problem won't yield long-lasting results. Separate work with inadequate beliefs and automatic thoughts, positive psychology, work with muscle clamps, trying to change your habits apart from everything else. Trying to deal with the symptoms and physiological manifestations of anxiety. All of this separately does not give any results. We need to educate our minds to effectively utilize our inner defense mechanism. Acquire the ability to perceive our alarm and comprehend its message. Acquire the ability to liberate your attention and thinking from insufficient beliefs and thoughts. Acquire proficiency in muscle relaxation techniques. Develop new habits and neural networks that are aligned with your state of calmness and confidence.